Okay, my name is Sandra Kwikiriza. From HERINTERNET. The current director. Um, HERINTERNET does a lot of work around promoting and supporting digital rights and internet freedoms for structurally silenced women. These are groups of queer women, groups of sex workers, and other groups of women who are pushed to the margins. Um, I'm also in several spaces, but I mostly exist as a digital rights consultant, expert, digital security, literacy, advocating against online violence and the like. We don't have a specific SRHR policy at the moment because SRHR is not one of the core thematic areas for our work, but we do have some SRHR principles incorporated in like human resource. SRHR information does spill over into our work, especially online, because the internet is a place to get information, to acquire information, but also for knowledge production. So a lot of resources and materials and discussions and conversations happening around SRHR, especially for minority communities, really obviously take place online because we all know that the internet has offered us platforms and spaces where marginalized voices can be heard, can organize, can mobilize, and just sort of share this information within their networks more safely than physically. So yes, the conversations do spill over onto online. I wouldn't say there's a way to measure the direct impact or benefits of this work to the communities, but I do know this information gets there from informal interactions with people, community members, interactions with them at like networking events or whatever. There is always conversations around something that they read about or something that they saw online, even if it's not specifically from HERINTERNET's platforms. As someone who sits in several spaces, including funding boards, committees, and all that, it's quite hard to fundraise for anything to do with LBQT. It's much harder when it comes to SRHR because somehow there is systemic marginalization of women, number one. But then when the conversation goes to LBQT people specifically, the conversations in donor spaces are around lack of data. They are around less risk of these communities to contract STIs or HIV/AIDS or other issues around sexuality and reproductive health. And so it's really hard to lobby for funding for these specific groups of people because of the lack of documentation, lack of data. I think it's mostly around the fact that the data that organizations working around SRHR, specifically for LBQT people, they hold on to that information internally. So it's only shared with immediate donors or board members or amongst the organization's members, and it doesn't really trickle down to other people. So it's hard for even us in those spaces to lobby for funding because we don't have the information publicly available. And I think that's one of the issues. Then, of course, the other challenges around patriarchy and heteronormativity. We can't have this conversation without talking about how the patriarchy and heteronormativity affect funding and work around SRHR for LBQT people. Because already it's, when conversations around money come, it goes first to the male gender. Before anything is even said, before concepts are written, before conversations are had, the money is first allocated to MSM, gay people, and all that. So when we're in those spaces, personally, what I try to do is say, look, I represent a large block of people, and there is no way we can be this many and not have these challenges concretely put down, right? So one of the things that I do is I urge our organizations to share this information publicly so that even the Ministry of Health in Uganda or other national spaces can pick it up and carry it forward. Because I know many of us do work around Global Fund policies with the TASO, with the AIDS Commission, but I don't know what happens at that level after the data has left our organizations. What happens to it? Do people at the AIDS Commission pick it out? Do people at the Ministry of Health pick it out and not forward it to Global Fund processes? We need to engage more with those processes beyond just implementing them with support from them. Yeah. As an LBQ representative on the UKPC board, firstly, this is a new position that I've only occupied for a couple of months. And UKPC is equally an emerging organization. It's been around for a while, but it's really just now picking up and existing in different spaces. I can't speak mainly to my position on the board of UKPC, but I can speak to the general conversation around LBQ women not being recognized as key populations in the fight against HIV/AIDS. My previous points still carry water. We've gotten into these spaces of advocating for SRHR, especially through the angle of HIV/AIDS, through work done around MSM and gay men, not because of work done around LBQ women. So there is a way, when MSM infiltrated these spaces, they kind of carried the entire LGBT community with them. But as we were moving on this journey, LBQ women were left behind. Let's say just erased, because even in the documents that collect data, there is no avenue for LBQ women. We are lost within others or sex workers, or we have to figure out where to place ourselves, and so on and so forth. So it's really been challenging because the language itself is excluding us. The definition of who key populations are is excluding LBQ women. It's really challenging to work in that kind of environment. But like I said, we exist, so they can't deny that we are actually there. They can't deny that we are in these spaces because we participate in processes. We are part of UKPC as a consortium, as an organization that's, bringing together different stakeholders onto this table. So I think we just need to keep pushing, keep doing our work, but most importantly, share the information that we collect publicly. And also talk about our individual work, or let's say work being done at organizational level, on the internet, on social media, because it's a place where everyone exists. So even if somewhere in the process communication between us as implementing partners, TASO, AIDS Commission, Ministry of Health, Global Fund, if at any of that point communication is lost, at least on social media there will be that evidence showing that we've done this work in these regions, we've reached several LBQ women. So I think we just need to keep pushing and occupying these spaces regardless. I definitely think the fact that we've hinged the fight of SRHR issues to HIV has caused a big rift between key population who are considered key populations and LBQ women. As LBQ women, our issues are vast. Our SRHR needs are vast, completely different from specific HIV/AIDS needs. And I think also the issue of saying there is no data is because we are tagging it to HIV/AIDS. I think Farouk has done some work around kind of explaining and expanding what SRHR means for us as LBQ women with their publication. But then again, we need more resources like that. We need more conversations. HERINTERNET recently hosted a dialoguing conversation on SRHR, with support from HERAF under their ongoing, I think, work around strengthening LBQ SRHR, work in Uganda. And it was very interesting, that conversation, that we did not mention HIV/AIDS among our SRHR needs as LBQ women. The conversation was around how to really figure out what sexuality means and how we exist as sexual beings in this Kampala, but also in the world that is hypersexualizing us already as individuals, as women, but also as LBQ women, because there's added layers to that kind of hypersexualization. And then the other conversations were around contraception. What happens for queer women who need contraceptive services? Which organizations that are queer-led or queer-friendly are providing these services? Conversations were also around just understanding relationship dynamics, because the world has dictated to us what our intimate relationships should look like. And yet, it's not how they should be. There is no box, there is no label, there is no definite boundary through which we should exist in our relationships. So the conversations were vast, as you can see. completely on a different tangent from HIV/AIDS. So I definitely think tagging our SRHR needs specifically as LBQ women to HIV/AIDS and ending that I guess pandemic has also kind of made us lose sight of what our actual needs are under SRHR, and they are vast. It's even things to do with menstrual hygiene and menstrual health, period stigma. It's things to do with biphobia. It's things to do with how we are infusing heteronormativity within how we relate, even to friends. If it's not an intimate relationship, even just with friends, with our family members. So our issues are vast, so vast. And we haven't even started tackling the little bit. So going forward, we have things to do like data sharing. And I think the onus is on us to organize ourselves as LBQ individuals and organizations to figure out where is this central place that we want to have our data placed. We have networks like the UKPC that can host this data, or on their website, or on a central server or something. We have organizations like HERINTERNET that are well versed in these things that can also support the process, but it needs to start with the whole movement. It can't just be us working in silos. We need to want to move together as LBQ people in Uganda to say we are kind of veering from really focusing on HIV/AIDS. We want to tackle it as well, but we are veering in a different direction to say we are coming at our SRHR needs through this angle. So I think it also calls for collaboration, a lot of collaboration. Many of us are doing different things on different things. Farouk is doing ABCD, Femme Alliance is doing ABCD, HERINTERNET is doing ABCD, Kuchu Times is bringing the media aspect. So I think if we all worked together and found a way of increasing the visibilities of our voice and our issues, we shall kind of stand out from the general key populations. And there's also nothing wrong with wanting to not be part of the key populations that are defined. We can say we want to define ourselves differently. Maybe we aren't key populations for HIV/AIDS. Maybe we are key populations for something else, right? So I don't think there is anything wrong with saying, okay, if the national mechanisms don't consider us key populations, that's fine. How else can we organize ourselves to get our voices and our needs heard?